Hello there ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is Anton Risk and I'm here today in this video to do a crash course and a brief history lesson regarding command line user interfaces as they apply to Windows. Now as you can see we're running the latest version of Windows, Windows 11, and we'll be going over computer user interfaces in the form of, again, GUIs and command lines, and doing a bit of a history lesson as well as a bit of a demonstration to help you get started. The reason I'm making this video is because some people ultimately touch grass and don't spend all of their days on computers, hence they do need a little bit of guidance of getting used to some of the more legacy elements that you will find in operating systems. Without going into too much detail and without boring people into oblivion, we'll go just very briefly over the history of the command line interface and of course the evolution of the graphical user interface that we use today. Now, of course, as many of you may know, in generations past and many years ago, computers really were nowhere near as powerful as what we have today. They generally didn't possess the kind of remarkably powerful graphical user interface engines that we now have. They didn't possess many cores, nor did they possess particularly large primary storage mediums, RAM, or any of those kind of things. So what we were effectively left with in those situations where computers were considerably less powerful was known as the command line interface. However, thanks to the fact computers are vastly more powerful and have been for quite some time, compared to the systems of the 1980s and 1990s, we now have, of course, graphical user interfaces that allow us to explore our storage, allow us to copy files, execute programs, do all manner of things. Of course, today's crash course is not about the graphical user interface, it's about the command line interface. And the reason why we may very well end up using the command line interface, and the reason why we may desire to do so, is simply because the command line interface even today has a great many uses. A major use case, of course, is simply where a graphical user interface is not appropriate. Now, not everyone here is a developer, but you can see here quite clearly this is an application that implements the command line interface, and it's designed around that. It's specifically known as a console application. And the reason why we may choose to do this and may choose to implement software using command line interface as the centerpiece is simply because you use a lot less resources, a lot less libraries, and there's just a lot less nonsense that, takes money and, in the case of companies, costs them time and money to actually implement. There's also a situation as well where many people are required to do administration on systems that are not necessarily on location, such as virtual private networks, remote servers, and things of that description. So we would very heavily make usage of things like the command line interface to communicate with systems over a potentially relatively slow internet connection. So it's for that reason why we would still make usage of the command line interface, and it's very popular to see it being used as well for many applications such as FFmpeg. Well, I don't know about you, but I think that's more than enough history for one day, and we might as well just get on to it and explain how does the command line user interface work. Well, in my case, I'm using a start is back piece of software which has slightly adjusted the user interface of Windows. So the way that you access the CMD is as follows. You type in CMD on search, and it opens it that way. You can use the same thing in run to open the command line interface. Now basically the way that the command line interface works is it's a little bit like the graphical user interface, where we are within a given directory, and from this directory we can access different files and applications. So if we go ahead and just make this a little bit bigger so you can see, even if you have pretty toasterish resolution, we are of course on Microsoft Windows version 10, which is, I think it's Windows 11, and we'll go ahead and just clear the command line interface to remove any sort of excess details. Now what we're going to do is we're going to navigate to our desktop directory, which is the same directory that you can see here. We can figure out also as well what we have on our desktop by typing in dir, and it tells us all of the different files we have, their sizes, and other information such as that. So we have 109 gigabytes available of storage. We have 2 files, and they're about 2 million bytes, or about 2 megabytes according to this. And of course we have a directory, cool stuff, and a few boilerplate up directories in case we need them. So basically more or less how commands work on the command line interface is that using a whole bunch of environmental variables and a little bit of magic, we have a massive collection of different console applications, not unlike the one I have here, which helps us display things such as arguments. So if you're using something like LuaDeck, you type in, of course, LuaDeck, or for the sake of argument, to get this to work, we'll be using main. You type in the file that you want to decompile, so let's say, pretty popular example with my audience, client.lua, and you'd of course type in the output. Same thing with ffmpeg, in.wave into out.mp3. This command of course would convert a WAV file to MP3. However, we don't have ffmpeg installed anywhere, even where the environmental variables are, so we can't use ffmpeg on this system. We'll go ahead and just clear all of this. Now, we can also use the command line interface to copy files. I think I'll try using move, and we'll move main.ccp to cpp to cool stuff. And we are able to move files from one directory to another. There's also a cool little secret where we can use our little wildcard to automatically autocomplete our entries. So we've moved our CPP file, C++ file, to our cool stuff directory. And we can move back. Using a drive letter, we can of course move on to different drives. So we're in the D drive at the moment, where I have all the drivers for this VM. And we can of course move back to our desktop and to our primary drive using the C function. Now, because of the fact that we have all kinds of really cool environmental variables set up by default in Windows, we can use a variety of different applications. So we can type in Explorer, and we get our regular good old-fashioned File Explorer that comes with Windows. We can run ipconfig, which is a console application that tells us our IP addresses and all these other things. We can also clear that. We can as well use the ping function, which will tell us if we are able to ping a system or a website. So we're going ahead and pinging Google now. We can ping ourselves, which allows us to figure out what's going on with our network. And of course, we can use another particularly famous command in Windows, the shutdown command. In this case, we've set the shutdown timer for 1 second. And that more or less sums up the command line interface pretty much in a nutshell. Please let me know if you guys would like to see me do one of these on Linux and in regards to how Linux works. And please also let me know as well if there is any interest in perhaps doing other videos like this. Your comments and feedback are incredibly valuable to me, and you can join us on Discord as well if you require additional assistance. Links will be in the description below for that. That being said, like, comment, subscribe, join us on Discord, and I hope to see you all again soon. Please also feel free to give feedback in the comments section. That's all. Goodbye.